Well, I must say we are very lucky to have with us today Lakita Brooks, who's the founder and CEO of Therapytopia, and it specializes in workplace mental wellness solutions, which we all need right now, probably whether it's workplace or at home or anywhere else we go. And she's so joyful. I just don't know how, with working with mental wellness solutions under a pandemic, she can be so joyful. But I'm very appreciative over it. Our our session today is called Workplace Mental Wellness Solutions. And so, Ms. Brooks, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can elaborate a little bit more about your background and go into your presentation. And we thank you so much for participating.
Yes, thank you, Patty. So my name is Lakita Brooks, and one of the things that brought me to being a social worker is just my ability to navigate and just really get things done. So my background, I have a master's in social work from Florida State University. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And interestingly, during this COVID-19 pandemic, I feel like for some individuals, it's been a challenge to adapt, to navigate. It's been a snowball effect for employers and employees, and with employers, it's multiple levels, and we'll talk more about that today. But for me personally, it's been an amazing time to really get creative and think about solutions on how to solve some of the main problems that employers are experiencing, like laying off employees and developing outplacement mental wellness services for COVID-19 Thrive. So looking forward to this webinar today, and make sure you take some really amazing notes. All right, so our objectives for this webinar is: executives, you will learn the impact of employees' mental health on engagement, productivity, and retention. Discover the 3 most valuable statistics to create personalized workplace mental wellness solutions, and to gain knowledge of practical solutions to create a human workplace culture. So, human workplace culture. This is a quote that basically I wrote that kind of sums it all up. Be human, get help, and live well are the 3 foundational values you need to incorporate in your employer brand and corporate culture to improve employee engagement, productivity, and retention, and to enhance recruitment and rehiring efforts, because those are the key things to every single business. So I'll first start out by saying, with the Trust Index survey, with employers and employees alike, everybody wants to trust their leaders. Whether you're a senior manager, trusting the CEO, or stakeholders, whether you're the employees, that you want to trust your supervisors and management. It's about having trust in your leaders. Also, everybody wants to feel like they're making a difference. Most people go to work because they truly and genuinely want to make a difference. And also, we kind of want to like the people that we work with. It makes things a lot easier, and also it allows us to, build closer bonds and a closer relationship. So whether it's you're in the healthcare industry, social services, airline, you want to get that human touch, because before I became a social worker or a mom, I was Lakita Brooks. I'm a human being that wants to have an amazing life and a great life experience, and I'm quite sure you all feel the same way. And to put it in just really simple terms, be human means you want your employees to feel like they are just able to be themselves. It's okay to be human, especially in a climate like this. where work life and home life are being intertwined. And even the same for employers. Your lives are extremely different because you're dealing with employees, you're dealing with management, and a lot of companies are also dealing with federal regulations that are constantly changing. So making sure you stay within the laws and also doing what's right by employees. It's okay to get help. A lot of companies offer employee assistance programs and other services like outplacement mental wellness services, corporate wellness services, but a lot of times, especially when it comes to mental health, employees do not use the services. At this point, only about 5% of employees utilize their EAPs because they're afraid that people are going to know about their mental health. And that's not the case. And I'll elaborate more on that later. And even with executives, you're probably concerned about anyone finding out about it, but they won't. But we'll talk more about that. And lastly, that your company genuinely wants you to live an amazing life while still meeting the needs of the company, because it should be a win-win in all situations. In an ideal world, we will not bring our personal issues to life. I'm quite sure at some point when you were the employer or even the employee, you had a really really rough day. You might have had an argument right before you got out of the car, working with kids, changes. It could be physical health. So in the ideal world, we would not bring our personal issues to work. Unfortunately, that's not the reality. The reality is we're still who we are, and now we're entering into the workplace. So our personal mental health impacts our productivity while we're at work. So with the World Health Organization, on the informational sheet for May 2019, depression and anxiety have a significant economic impact. So it costs about $1 trillion per year for a loss of productivity. Why? Because people are still people. They're just bringing it to your workplace. But the good thing is when you invest in corporate wellness solutions, employee assistance programs, outplacement mental wellness services, on-site services, when you take a holistic approach to incorporating things that people are experiencing and offer those on-site at your company, you get a return on your investment of $4. And during this climate and during this season of COVID-19, I can confidently say that your return on investment is going to be much, much greater because everybody is dealing with life. Even with me saying that, I've been able to thrive during this season, just because of my background, and I don't mind working independently. It was still an adjustment to school my daughter at home. And for others, some people still had to go into the workplace and their children were at home. So everybody, when I say everybody is dealing with it. We're all adjusting and adapting in different ways, but we're all adapting. So with the SHRM survey, it talks about nearly 1 in 4 employees report feeling down, depressed, or hopeless often. And the root of that is simply just sometimes you just don't know what to do. You don't know how to navigate. So you feel stuck or trapped. But please know you have the power. And with every single problem, there is a solution. Now, whether you need to connect with your employee assistance program, whether you need to talk to a colleague, whether you need to talk to a therapist, but just make sure you can talk in confidence. But please know, and guess what? And during this time, it's okay if you feel a little depressed. Take a moment, cry, binge eat, watch Netflix, but realize that there's something so much greater for you. 41% of employees feel burnt out, drained, or exhausted from their work. And in my experience, what really causes that is that people are taking on way too much. So recognize as an employer, you are human. You are entitled to be tired or to feel exhausted. You are entitled to all of those different things because you're still a human being that's living an experience right now with everyone else. But the key is set priorities. Really think about what has to get done today. And I think that it would be extremely helpful if you're able to mesh the two worlds. So having a really strong understanding of what benefits are currently being offered at your company, along with what are the regulations, and then from that, getting with a group of your amazing colleagues and really brainstorming how can we make these different things happen with less stress and not feeling overwhelmed, like really sitting down and having a deep dive because we only have the amount of hours we have in a day when we're at work. And you have to use that wisely. So set priorities. And lastly, over 1 in 3 employees reported having done nothing to cope. So they're just waking up every morning, showing up. And I'm quite sure it's employees and employers alike. And only 7% have reached out to a mental health professional. And once again, it's because people shun mental health sometimes. Yes, our organization and our world is definitely evolving and becoming more progressive, but there are still a lot of stigmas to deal with mental health. So number one, like we talked about earlier, is be human. 93% of employees reported they're likely to stay with an empathetic employer. And that simply means I'm putting myself in your shoes. Like I'm looking at it through your lens. And if it's a culture of empathy, both are going to happen. The employees are going to look at things through the lenses of the supervisors and recognize supervisors are not perfect. Supervisors are experiencing life, and supervisors are also trying to figure it out. And the same will go for management and the employer, that they're going to look at things through the employee's lenses. They're probably getting paid less. They more than likely have a little extra financial strain, and they're also trying to figure it out. And it's still a lot for everyone. So remember, be human. And I would say also with being human, it's about helping, people problem solve. So I'll just speak in the role of a social worker. And I know everyone's not signing up to be a social worker, but just hear me out for a moment. When I think about employers and supervisors and management, whether you're in healthcare, social services, you're in a role of problem solving. So look at yourself as a corporate social worker. And as a social worker, my role is to be empathetic, to listen, and also to provide resources. And I do some problem solving. So when you're in the role of the employer to help manage your stress, your overwhelm, your anxiety, be a resource. Figure out if this person is dealing with this issue, what resources or benefits does the company offer to help the person with this? Or figure out who has the skill set in order to delegate that responsibility to them, because you want to delegate to someone who has the skill set. Because if you delegate to someone and it's not within their scope, it's going to become frustrating because then they're not going to know how to do it. And now you're probably going to be left up to doing it. So be a resource. One thing I think will be extremely helpful with being that corporate social worker that I mentioned is asking the HR professionals at your company to just do a one-page document that's all inclusive. It's going to cover all of the benefits that's offered with the company, and also what problem does it solve, and possibly a hyperlink to it. And what this does is when someone's dealing with mental health, you can refer them to EAP. If someone's having some physical concerns, you can identify which benefit your company offers that will help with weight loss. If they're dealing with childcare issues, what benefit your company offers. So then it's not something that you have to think about. It could just be a one pager that's given out to your employees. Also, it can be up in the break room or different places to let people know help is here. As an employer, we've provided these benefits and make sure that you utilize them. Next, get help. We've kind of touched on this already. Get help. Let your employees know it's okay. And also as an employer and supervisor and manager, excuse me, it's okay for you to get help. So I will speak as a therapist that has worked with employee assistance programs. And I would say I'm 95% confident that with employee assistance programs, the information is not reported to your companies. Now, say you had to go to EAP for substance abuse or some other concern, that's different. That's mandated, EAP, and that information will probably be reported back to the employer. But the employer already knows you have a concern. That's why it's mandated. But for individuals who self-select to go to EAP, typically when I receive a referral for EAP or to meet with the client, when I submit my information back to the company, the only thing I submit is the person's name and the dates. The company that I typically work with, they do not know what I talked about with the client or what the client talked about with me. So it is truly a confidential benefit that a lot of people don't use because they're concerned. And that is natural. So from a therapist that have worked with EAP, I do not share anything that's discussed in that therapy session. The only thing that they will know, your company will know, is the date and the person's name. That's it. So it is a safe space. And also with SHRM, they kind of talked about this during a recent press release that, you know, we need to create a culture that shows it's acceptable to get help. And lastly, live well. So this is based on the 8 dimensions of substance abuse, mental health, services administration. So in life, we want to be able to live well. And a lot of companies are implementing a few of these different wellness domains, but a few other ones I think need to have a greater push, like financial security. So being able to, you know, enjoy life and be with friends for that emotional support, having an amazing occupation where you're happy, having the physical health in order to be able to be there for your grandkids, spending time with, you know, your child or your mentee and investing in them, learning something new in our wonderful virtual world, you know, being a CEO with financial security, traveling. All of these things are incorporated in living well. And as an employer, I would highly encourage you to look at life through this lens when you're considering various benefits to your employees. So see, hey, am I hitting these 8 domains, or am I only solely focused on EAP? And I know I've talked a lot about EAP because most companies have employee assistance programs, but like we said earlier, it's only being used by 5% of the employees. Only 5%. And that's because of the stigma. We have to create a culture that it's okay to get help. It's okay to be human. And it's okay to live well in all 8 domains. Because what's the purpose of having mental health, but then you're not financially secure? Or having physical health and you don't have any social supports and you're a loner? So it's about that holistic approach to living well. So a case study, so on this particular slide, there's a lot of companies who've done extremely well according to Glassdoor. So for those of you all who are not familiar with Glassdoor, Glassdoor is an online platform where employees are able to give feedback about the company that they work with presently or they work with in the past. So these are just a few companies. But I am going to discuss another company that's not listed, since I know that a lot of companies are within the healthcare industry. I wanted us to kind of, do a deep dive into, St. Jude's and what they do. This is just some feedback from employees at St. Jude's. So an employee of 10 years wrote, "My first and only job I've ever had in one. Says St. Jude ensures its employees are happy by providing us with appropriate time off, great insurance, and in planning for fun events throughout the year. My coworkers are wonderful and they make coming to work easy. I started my career here and I never want to leave." And earlier we talked about the 3 key things that all employers and employees want is to trust their leaders, feel they're making a difference, and like the people they work with. So with St. Jude, they're doing very well in this area. Someone else said, "I never felt so valued as an employee." Someone else wrote, "I'm an employee that worked at St. Jude for over a year. Wonderful place to work. Highly motivated and encouraging coworkers. Wonderful work atmosphere. Sense of community and pride among faculty and staff." And these are a few things that I picked out that was a little unique, at least in my opinion, that St. Jude does. Like with health insurance, there's no waiting. Day one of employment, people have health insurance, or employees, excuse me. Retirement savings, which is really a very rare thing, only unless you work for the public sector, city, state, federal, those type of agencies, they pay into your retirement. But a lot of companies, they don't do that now, especially since we've moved more into a gig society. So St. Jude's, they contribute 7% of an employee's bi-weekly salary after 1 year. So they just automatically give that to their employees just as a thank you for working here. And they have retirement consultants regularly that visit the campus for one-on-one counseling. And that says, "We're concerned about your money." And because what employers have to realize, and when I use the term employer, I just mean the company as a whole, because supervisors, executives, and employees, they all need to focus on retirement. And with St. Jude, they recognize that if someone's finances are not in order, then that's going to impact their ability to work, or they're going to attempt to, do other jobs while they're at their current job at St. Jude and other places. So you really want your employees to understand finances so then they can do well, because financial stress, I'm quite sure, is probably the number one stressor. And even now during COVID-19, a lot of people were not prepared. Even companies were not prepared to have 3, 6, 9 months of savings available just in case something happened. So life insurance and financial security. St. Jude not only provides life insurance to the employee, they provide it for the spouse and the children. Because once again, it is stressful to deal with grief. And right in this particular sense, we're talking about death. But during COVID-19, I think a lot of people are experiencing grief in different ways. One, just a loss of normalcy. And that's for executives and employees alike. Our normal lives have completely changed. And guess what? We're not going back to normal. You might as well say it's going to be a new normal. So at this point, in our lives, we have to look at it through the lens of, I'm the best adaptable person ever, because we're going to constantly be adapting until we really figure things out. I mean, who really wants to go to the beach wearing a mask? But hey, that might be life. But who knows? But either way, become the master at adapting. Also, fitness and wellness is offered on site. So they said, hey, we want to make sure you're physically healthy, because if your employees are physically healthy, if executives are physically healthy, then that's going to reduce the cost of health insurance expenses or premiums, and hopefully. It will be less sick days being used, even if employees have them, and also executives. So all around, it's just a good idea. If on site, have a fitness center. They have group fitness classes, on site health screening. So everything is right here. Take your 15-minute break, lunch break, go in the gym. Also, personal and family benefits. We've talked about EAP, adoption assistance, growth and professional development. Executives and employees alike are for those who are interested in doing better for themselves. They want to be able to grow and to blossom. So that's one of the things they offer is tuition assistance. And also for time off, 6 weeks of paid parental leave. So that sounds like it's for the mom or dad. Long as you're a parent, you get this leave, and even a bike sharing program. And that's a twofold, because riding a bike equals physical health, equals reduction in cost, equals having purpose, equals, doing something that's going to better the individual. So with everything that was said, I think the key thing that I want you to take away is, from an executive standpoint, that it's okay for you to be human. It's okay for you to have life stressors. It's okay for you to feel at capacity. The key is really figuring out what has to get done today, not tomorrow, not 2 days from now, not 3 days from now, but really focusing on what has to get today, setting priorities, and also, setting boundaries. Because in all roles, yes, our executives, our shareholders, they all expect 20 things to get done 5 minutes ago. And I think that's the nature of the beast. So one thing I would also recommend is that you figure out how to communicate your needs, or even communicate how to set healthy boundaries. If you know you have 20 projects going on right now and 20 new regulations that just happened, just find out from the person that delegated this new opportunity to you, what's the pressing thing you want me to work on right now? So just ask the question. And then from that, you can focus solely on the one thing that they mentioned is pressing, or the 2 or 3 things. But either way, find out from them directly. Don't just take on another task and hey, you're swamped because you're dealing with your employees, your customers, your clients. You're also dealing with life outside of work. You might have aging parents. You might have, kids that's now like adult kids who you're now financially taking care of because they're not working. So it is okay to be human. It is okay to go sit in your car during your lunch break and just breathe. And with me saying that, take your lunch break. A lot of times I know when I worked with the Department of Veterans Affairs, I would work through my lunch break. No, take your lunch break, even if it's just to go sit in a corner by yourself. Go sit and look at the lake. Just go do something. Be human. Feel how you're feeling, but make sure you still put on, make sure you still, do well, be good, help out, but set priorities and boundaries. Get help. Use your EAP. I'm telling you, it is confidential. The therapist will not be sharing that information back to your employer, or have a friend that you can talk to in confidence. But make sure it's someone that's going to hold your secrets. And it's okay as an employer to get help, because you're not perfect and we're all adapting to a new normal. And live well. When you're looking at your life, really do a deep dive from the executive standpoint. Like, hey, financially, I might be doing extremely well. I have great savings. But physically, my body is tired, my body is exhausted. So when you look at those 8 domains of wellness, to really assess your life and be honest with yourself. Which of these areas am I scoring a 10 in? Those areas are awesome. Let them be. But in those areas where you feel like you're scoring like a 5 or a 4, really take some time to think about, what can I do to make my life better in this particular area so you can live well? Because the better you're able to perform as an executive, the better your employees will be able to perform, and you'll have the capacity to to deal with them. And like I said, become that corporate social worker. Be able to problem solve and provide a resource. Not take in their different issues that they have going on, refer them to EAP, obtain that one-page document from HR. So that's the first step. So then at least you know all the benefits and you can quickly divert them to who they need to actually talk to. And I'm just going to read this quote by Paul Wilson. There are only two ways to handle tense situations. You can change them or you can change the way you look at them. There is enlightenment to be had in changing the way you look at things. I'm Lakita Brooks. Thank you all so much for your time today.